Today we hear again a story from the inside from Genesis. Today, the 25th chapter, beginning with the 19th verse. These are the descendants of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham was the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean of Paddan Aram, sister of Laban the Aramean. Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord granted his prayer, and his wife Rebekah conceived. The children struggled together within her, and she said, "If it is to be this way, why do I live?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples born of you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other. The elder shall serve the younger." When her time to give birth was at hand, there were twins in her womb. The first came out red, all his body like a hairy mantle, so they named him Esau. Afterward his brother came out, with his hand gripping Esau's heel, so he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore him. When the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, while Jacob was a quiet man, living in tents. Isaac loved Esau because he was fond of game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once when Jacob was cooking a stew, Esau came in from the field, and he was famished. Esau said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red stuff, for I am famished." Therefore he was called Edom. Jacob said, "First sell me your birthright." Esau said, "I am about to die. What use is a birthright to me?" Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank, and rose and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. This is the written word of God for all of God's people.
Thanks be to God.
Amen. So if you were to know everything there is to know about me, and I'm nowhere near certain even I know everything there is to know about me, but if you did, you would know that I come from a hard-working people. My dad grew up in a family that farmed, and I think my dad learned to work before he ever really learned to play. My mother, whose birth name, get ready, was Workman, a fact that should not be ignored here, came virtually by definition from a people who labored. Workman, right? It just makes sense. So my dad labored in a factory 5 days a week for 40 years to provide for us. My mom worked at home, seeing to it that the house was clean and the laundry was done and the meals were prepared and the lunches were packed, and my sister and I were carted to and from about wherever we needed to go. For several years we lived on an acre of land for which the Corums cared meticulously to the end that people would say, "Oh, you have the nicest yard around." But that came at a cost. Earning that kind of reputation required no small amount of time. Keeping the yard in mint condition, not the least of which entailed the cultivation of a pretty good-sized garden, kept my parents busy many a summer evening, to the point where I will joke to this day that some nights I wondered at what hour my sister and I would finally be at supper. Are you going to quit working and feed us? Now, I cannot say with any degree of truth that these two produced an exemplary yard person in me. Though I will say this, I'll say there's a certain satisfaction I get from mowing. Some of you might understand. There's something beautiful and nearly inspiring about making rows. Making a row, and then a row. I don't want to make my row very big up here, and then another row. It's kind of beautiful, isn't it? It's a work of art. And there's, at least for me, there's a deep sense of accomplishment that comes from actually getting a ways up the yard, up the front, or across the back, or maybe best of all, to that very last blade of grass, and saying, I did that. I got it done. And I might find it too near to boasting to shout it from the rooftops or even from the pulpit, but if somebody says to me, you know, you work hard, I won't argue. I won't. There are people who work harder, and there are a host of those who work just as hard as I do. I know that. But if you tell me to work at something, and I tell you that I will, no matter what that is, I'll probably work really hard at it. In fact, a gentleman in a church I once served got to know my parents a little bit, and one day he said to me, he said, you know, I can see in your ministry that you're kind of like your dad. You plan out your work and you do it. And I thought, yeah, that's true. And so yes, I do come from a hard-working people. So today we're introduced to Harry and Gravel, otherwise known as Esau and Jacob, the twin sons of Isaac and Rebekah, Isaac being the son given by God to Abraham and Sarah to fulfill the promise of making of them a great nation. Esau's name means hairy, which he is, so we might as well give him a nickname, right? And Jacob's name means he who grabs the heel, which he also does, so I'm going to call him Grabber. Hairy and Grabber. And Grabber is grabbing from the very beginning, according to the story, though the same story also makes clear that in spite of his status as second-born, God already has destined for Grabber to have first place over his brother, his older brother. Seems kind of weird to me that there's even a distinction. They're twins. They're the same age, right? Now, I haven't talked to any twins about this. They might say something different, but they're the same age. It just happens one has to be born first. And in the culture, of course, there needs to be a firstborn. To be firstborn is to carry a higher social standing. That's true. It affords rights and privileges virtually never questioned and believed and assumed to be ordained of God. It's not a stretch to say that the entire legal and social structures of the culture in which this family lives are built on the very foundation of the privilege of the firstborn male. Because of that system, some people are privileged while others are not. And if we want to know this story for what it is, we cannot let pass by the fact that God is turning this whole structure of advantage and disadvantage on its head. God is choosing the second-born over the firstborn to gain all the rights and all privileges. And if I were smart, I said I work hard, I didn't say I was smart. If I was smart, maybe I would just make that announcement and let it go at that. God chooses the second over the first. After all, the further we get along and go in the biblical journey, the more we discover that this is the very nature and the very way of God. God sides with the underdog, whether you and I like it or not, whether we are the underdog or not. Mary declares before Jesus ever sees the light of day that God is bringing the mighty down from their thrones and lifting up the lowly. Paul the Apostle makes the daring assertion that God uses the foolish to shame the wise, and that God uses the weak to shame the strong. And that would make a really nice sermon, and we could stop right there. But the problem is I'm troubled. I am troubled by the way grabber keeps on grabbing. I wonder if all that grabbing is so necessary. I wonder, even though maybe I'm a grabber too. As Walter Brueggemann, the Old Testament scholar without whose written work I would be floundering through this whole series, has said, Jacob is born to a kind of restlessness so that he must always insist, grasp, and exploit, which may describe all the people some of the time and some of the people all the time. Or as Frederick Buechner, the great writer to whom I'm also indebted as I navigate these stories from the inside, once wrote, the fundamental characteristic of human power, whatever form it takes, is that it tends to be external and coercive. It is fundamentally the power, for better or for worse, to move things around. Things and people and ideas. A person has power from the outside to push, pull, prod, and mold other people to his liking, for her good or for theirs. But it is only the outside of these other people that a person's power can affect. Which is why I wonder about grabbing. He's kind of smart, really. He's a little bit of an overachiever, if you ask me. Born with his hand grasping his brother's heel, racing to turn second place into first to get out of there before his brother, it appears he will stop at nothing to get what he wants. He's shrewd to the point of dishonesty, as we'll find later on. He's smart. He's smarter than his brother, it seems to me, because to sell your birthright for a little bit of food, when you're so hungry you think you're going to die, but you know you're not going to die. Who does that? Esau is dumb. He's dumb. He's just kind of dumb. He makes me wonder if he really even deserves the birthright, since he doesn't really do anything to preserve it. His name should be workman. He should work a little harder to preserve and maintain what he has, but he doesn't. Old Jacob Grabber, on the other hand, knows how to get what he wants. He knows his brother's hungry. So what does he do? He takes advantage of his brother's hunger, right? Even if he's got to sacrifice, maybe he's given up his own meal. One meal, just one. There will be more. He knows that. He's smart. But there's only one birthright. And he's going to go for it. You watch him. Just watch me. I'm going to get it. Going for it. And who can deny that by applying himself, Grabber gets ahead? Hard work will get you ahead, right? That's what we say. Hard work, brain, skill, ingenuity, ambitious, put it all together and go for it, and the world will reward you. You will be a success. And so maybe we're all named Grabber. After all, Grabber becomes Israel. Jacob, Grabber, becomes Israel, who in the end becomes all of us who have faith. So there's a little bit of Grabber in all of us faithful ones. We're all born in some measure to a kind of restlessness, so that we must always insist, grasp, and exploit. And there are a lot of good things that you and I look for. They are good. That's true. There are a lot of things that we strive and maybe even fight for that are right. That's for sure. Now, even a little taking advantage here and a little twisting the truth over there, they can get you what you want. They can get you where you want to go sometimes. Let's not deny that. Let's be honest. But sometimes I wonder, if all our pushing and all of our striving in this world are not, if they're not just, at least at times, what lead us to push and strive against each other in the effort to be number one. If they are not from time to time the very source of our looking with disdain on those whom we consider less capable, less right, less good, less ambitious than we are. So Grabber needs to remember, because it's so easy to forget, that the birthright is not an achievement, but a gift. The blessing is not human-made or manufactured. It's God-given, like the most valuable things in life itself, and even life.